From the very first minute of Landman Season 2, Episode 8, the show quietly tells us something most viewers won't realize until the ending hits. This story is no longer about stopping disaster. It's about who already accepted it, who profits from it, and who is still naive enough to think the outcome can be changed. By the time the episode ends, the offshore drilling project is inevitable. M-Tex is already on a countdown clock, and the only person still emotionally reacting to any of this is Tommy. Everyone else has moved on.
This is art.
Yeah, maybe the art of money laundering.
This episode isn't explosive or loud, but it is one of the coldest hours of television this season has delivered, because it reveals that the system worked exactly as intended, just not for the people doing the actual work. Before we dive deep, here's a quick recap of what this episode is really about. Tommy confronts Dan over the offshore drilling project and learns that Dan has already structured his investment to profit even if M-Tex collapses. Cammy is financially protected through a massive trust, leaving the company and its employees exposed. Tommy realizes he has no leverage left and is forced to let the project move forward. Back home, while his professional life deteriorates, his personal life unexpectedly stabilizes, forcing him and the audience to question whether staying in the oil business is even worth the cost anymore. Now let's break this down properly. The most important scene in the entire episode is Tommy's sit-down with Dan, because it reframes everything we thought this conflict was about. Tommy walks into that conversation still operating under a dangerous assumption that everyone in the room wants M-Tex to survive. He lays out the operational risks, the political exposure, the long-term damage offshore drilling could cause, and the human cost if things go wrong. What Dan gives him in return is not a rebuttal, but a confession. Dan reveals that Cammy secured the loan through royalty payments, meaning his return is detached from the company's survival. And then he drops the line that changes the entire season. He does not expect M-Tex to survive the next 3 years. This isn't pessimism, it's planning.
I can shut down this entire business and pay myself back in 3 years.
Dan has already priced failure into the deal. The royalties will earn back his $400 million investment regardless of whether M-Tex thrives or collapses. From Dan's perspective, this isn't ruthless, it's efficient. Companies are temporary. Capital is not. Employees, infrastructure, reputation, those are variables he does not emotionally factor in. The system allows him to extract value without responsibility, and he takes full advantage of that. That's not villainy in the traditional TV sense. That's realism. And that's what makes the scene unsettling. Then comes the detail that fully exposes the imbalance. Cammy has a $280 million trust in her name. That means in the worst-case scenario, even if M-Tex implodes, the drilling project fails publicly, and the workforce is gutted, she walks away rich. Drill or no drill, win or lose, Dan and Cammy are insulated. The risk is entirely externalized. M-Tex's employees carry it, the communities carry it. This is the moment Tommy realizes he isn't negotiating anymore. He's witnessing a conclusion. Now, this is where the episode does something very smart, and where a lot of viewers misread Cammy. Dan is perfectly fine with M-Tex dying. Cammy is not. But that does not mean she's protected by innocence. She's protected by arrogance. Cammy believes she can beat the failure Dan has already accepted. She wants dominance, legacy, and recognition in the oil business. She doesn't see herself as someone cashing out before the collapse. She sees herself as the exception who proves the collapse wrong. That's the contradiction at the heart of her character. She's aligned with Dan's structure, but not his expectations. And that makes her dangerous, not because she's malicious, but because she believes confidence can overpower systemic reality. Tommy understands this instantly, and it devastates him. His reaction isn't anger or shouting, it's disbelief, because he finally understands that he was never a decision maker in this equation. He was friction. His role was to slow things down, to inject morality, caution, and hesitation in a machine designed to ignore all three. Once Dan reveals that failure is acceptable, that friction disappears. Momentum takes over. This is why the offshore drilling project becomes inevitable in this episode. Not because someone approved it, but because no one with real power is afraid of it anymore. That realization follows Tommy onto the plane back to Midland with Rebecca and Charlie. His reprimand of Charlie for not stopping Cammy isn't really about Charlie's actions. It's about Tommy's own limits. He needed someone to push back because he knows he couldn't anymore. When he tells Rebecca to calm down and stop blaming Charlie for being honest about her personality, it's not moral clarity, it's exhaustion. Tommy is no longer trying to win arguments. He's trying to survive emotionally. The final stretch of the episode shifts gears, but not accidentally. When Tommy gets home and sees Angela's baseball-themed dinner, the show is deliberately contrasting two worlds. Baseball represents routine, tradition, family, and emotional safety. Everything the oil business is not. It's not just a cute moment. It's a thematic anchor. This is the life Tommy keeps sacrificing for deals that no longer need him. His interaction with Thomas and Cheyenne reinforces this idea. There's no romance here, and the show makes that clear. What matters is the subtext. This moment, paired with the earlier scene involving Cammy and the man who disrespects her, highlights a recurring message this season has quietly repeated. Expectations have dropped so low that basic respect feels rare. The show isn't preaching, it's observing. Just like corporations normalize exploitation, people normalize emotional negligence, and both lead to the same outcome: burnout and disappointment. Ironically, this moment actually reassures Tommy. It's one of the few things that unfolds exactly as he hoped. He can't control billion-dollar investments anymore, but he can still influence the people around him in meaningful ways. That relief deepens when he learns Angela won over $300,000 at the casino. On paper, it's absurd, but symbolically, it's devastating. Luck succeeds where strategy failed. While Tommy did everything right professionally and still lost, his personal life flourishes when he lets go. This contrast isn't accidental. The entire season has been nudging us toward one uncomfortable truth. Tommy's job is killing him. The panic attacks, the constant moral compromise, the impossible responsibility, none of it is sustainable. Meanwhile, every time he steps into his role as a husband, father, or mentor, things stabilize. He breathes. He exists without calculating fallout. And that brings us to Cooper. Tommy has already started handing over the reins, whether he admits it or not. Cooper represents the next generation, one that still believes the system can be navigated without becoming hollow. Whether that belief is hopeful or naive is the question Season 3 will likely explore. If Tommy retires, the show doesn't end. It evolves. Tommy becomes a shadow figure, a warning, a guide. Cooper becomes the test case. Can someone operate inside the system without being consumed by it? Or is the cost unavoidable? That's why the ending of this episode isn't explosive. It's quiet. Because Landman isn't asking who wins anymore. It's asking who survives intact. Dan wins because he never cared. Cammy wins financially, but risks learning the hard way that confidence doesn't override structure. Tommy loses professionally because he still believes outcomes should matter, but that loss may be the very thing that saves him. And that's the most brutal truth the episode leaves us with. In a world where profit is protected from consequence, the most radical decision isn't to fight harder. It's to walk away before the system finishes stripping you down to something unrecognizable.